In medicine, confusion costs marks and mistakes cost lives. Stop memorizing, start understanding. This is Dr. ABM, where medicine finally makes sense. Alright, so in this video, we are going to simplify one of the most important physiology topics and concepts, and that's body fluid compartments. Now, I know this topic looks very confusing at first because you keep hearing things like intracellular fluid, extracellular fluid, interstitial fluid, hematocrit. It can sound like confusion, right? But in this video, I'm going to break everything down step by step in the simplest way possible. And by the end of this video, you understand where body water is located, how the compartments are divided, what separates them, why sodium is outside the cells, and why potassium is inside the cells. And trust me, once you understand the 60-40-20 rule and the membrane temperatures, this whole topic becomes very easy. So stay till the end because the osmolarity and indicator dilution principle is where many students usually get confused. And we're going to make it ridiculously simple today. Alright, so let's start. Introduction to body water, that's what we'll start with. Now, the human body is made up of largely water, you should know that. In fact, approximately 50-70% of the human body is water. But this percentage is not fixed for everybody. The amount of water in the body depends on different factors like age, sex, body fat, muscle mass, and many other factors. For example, infants usually have more body water, while elderly people tend to have less. Also, fat people contain less water than thin people. You understand? So it's very important. Now, all the water present in the body together is called the total body water. And this total body water is distributed into different compartments. And that's the foundation for this topic. It's very, very important you know that. Now, if we consider all the fluid inside the cells together as one compartment, that compartment is called intracellular fluid. All the fluid in a cell are intracellular, inside the cell. Intracellular means inside the cell. So usually we abbreviate it as ICF. Then all the fluid outside the cells together form another compartment called extracellular fluid, outside extra, or we call them the ECF. Now, what separates these two compartments is the cell membrane. Very, very important. Remember, we have discussed cell membrane in one of our videos. You can check it out. The cell membrane separates the intracellular fluid from the extracellular fluid. And one thing you should remember very well is that most of the body water is actually inside the cells. It's very, very important. The cell membrane, we have said earlier that it separates the intracellular fluid from the extracellular fluid, right? And another thing you should remember very well is that most of the body water is actually inside the cells. Like I said, I've repeated it twice now. So about 2/3 of the total body water is intracellular fluid. Then the remaining 1/3 is extracellular fluid. This is very, very, very important. Take note. Now, there's what we call the 60-40-20 rule. Alright, so take it like this. Assume that the total body water is about 60% of the body weight. 60% of the body weight, right? Out of that 60%, 40% is intracellular. So 40 is ICF. And then 20% is extracellular. So it's very easy, 60-40-20. A difference of 20 in each. So 60 minus 20 will give you 40. 40 minus 20 will give you 20. So remember 60-40-20 rule. So this is one of the highest yield facts that you can remember. It's very important, please. Now, talking about the divisions of the ECF, right? The ECF is further divided into two parts. One part is the fluid that is inside the blood vessels, and that is called plasma. So right on the screen here, this is the plasma, right? So plasma is fluid that is inside vessels. Then the second part is the fluid that is outside the blood vessels, right? But still surrounding the cells. That's called interstitial. So this is the interstitial fluid. So plasma is inside vessels, interstitial fluid is outside vessels. It's also important you know that the interstitial fluid is way larger than the plasma, right? The interstitial fluid makes up about 3/4 of the extracellular fluid, while plasma is just about the remaining 1/4. And don't forget that what separates plasma from the interstitial fluid is the capillary membrane. Remember earlier, what separates ICF from ECF is cell membrane. Now, what separates interstitial fluid from plasma is the capillary membrane. So that means if you are going by way of illustration, this will be where the cell membrane will protect, while this will be where the capillary membrane will protect. Do we get that? So it's very, very important. Now, it's important you know that blood serves as a compartment itself on its own, right? And this is because blood contains both extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. So the plasma portion of blood that you can see is ECF, right? But the red blood cell contain ICF inside them. So this is the red blood cell. This is hematocrit reading. So now the percentage of blood that is occupied by the red blood cell is called hematocrit. So that means that if hematocrit increases, it means there are more red blood cells relative to plasma. This is a very common exam question and point. Take note. Now, it's also very important to quickly mention that it is not only ICF and ECF we have, right? There are also some specialized fluid compartments in the body. For example, the cerebrospinal fluid, the peritoneal fluid, pericardial fluid, synovial fluid, and fluid inside body cavities. So together, these fluids that are neither intra or extracellular are called transcellular compartments, right? Sometimes they are considered as a small part of the extracellular fluid, right? But most times in physiology discussion, the major compartments we focus on are intracellular fluid, extracellular fluid, which is further divided into plasma, and interstitial fluid. Take note. Now, there are solutes in body fluids. These compartments do not only contain only water, they also contain dissolved substances called solutes. Now, the composition of this solute differs between compartments. If you remember, we said the capillary membrane separates the plasma from interstitial fluid, while the cell membrane separates extracellular fluid from intracellular fluid. So fluid can move through the capillary membrane to form interstitial fluid. So the interstitial fluid is basically an ultrafiltrate of plasma. This simply means that its composition are very similar to plasma. However, there is one major difference: proteins. The capillary membrane has pores that allow many solutes to pass through, but proteins are too large to cross easily. So proteins will remain mainly inside plasma. So this means that plasma has high protein content, while interstitial fluid has low or very little protein. It's important. Now, it's important you know that because proteins are negatively charged and remain mainly in the plasma, this creates something that we call the Gibbs-Donald effect, right? And this is to maintain electrical balance. So to maintain electrical balance, plasma tends to have slightly more small cations called sodium, and they have fewer anions called chloride. So this is the extracellular fluid here, the plasma, right? You have sodium as the cation, predominant cation, and chloride here, right? But overall, the composition of the plasma and the interstitial fluid remains similar. So this is extracellular fluid, you should know that. So that means the major cation in the ECF is sodium. Take note. And the major anions are chloride and bicarbonate, like you can see. So that's the characteristics of the ECF. Take note. So talking about the composition of the ICF now, the ICF is a little bit different. Cell membrane is selectively permeable, you know that. So that means that it allows water to move freely, but solutes do not easily move across it. So the composition of the ICF becomes different from the ECF. So inside the cell, potassium is the major cation. Magnesium is also important, but potassium is the major. While the major anions are proteins, phosphates like ADP and ATP. So what have we said so far? Sodium is mainly outside the cell, ECF. Potassium is mainly inside the cell. Right? This is one of the most important physiology concepts ever. But despite these differences, both compartments remain electrically neutral. And that's because total positive charge equals total negative charge. Watch our video on excitable tissues to understand this. Quickly, let's talk about calculating fluid compartment. Right, let's talk about calculating fluid compartment. Now, we already know that total body water is equal to ECF plus ICF. And we know that ECF now, that's extracellular fluid, is equal to plasma plus interstitial fluid, right? So that means that the total body water, the ECF, and plasma can be measured directly using what we call the indicator dilution principle. It's very, very important. So what's the indicator dilution principle? It simply means that an indicator, a colorant, right, is introduced into a compartment, and then it will distribute evenly. After distribution, we now calculate the dilution. Now it's important you know that different indicators are used for different compartments. For total body water, the indicator must have the ability to cross cell membranes. Take note. For ECF, the indicator must have the ability to stay outside the cell. it must not be able to penetrate the cell membrane, or else it will stay the ICF. Take note. And then for plasma, the indicator must remain inside blood vessel. So it means for plasma, it must not be able to cross the capillary membrane, right? So now intracellular fluid and interstitial fluid are usually calculated directly. We already said it. So if total body water is equal to ICF plus ECF, it means that ICF will be equal to total body water minus ECF. Now it's just calculations. And if ECF now is equal to interstitial fluid plus plasma, that means that since we know plasma and ECF through indicator dilution, we can just simply say that interstitial fluid now will be equal to ECF minus plasma. And then if you know the plasma volume and the hematocrit, you can calculate blood volume. Are we good now? Very, very important. Take note. So on the screen are some of the indicators that are used for total body water. We use tritium and deuterium, antipyrine. For ECF, you can use sodium or iodine, inulin, right? ICF, you calculate using calculation. Plasma, you use albumin, Evans blue dye, right? And then for interstitial fluid, you calculate. It's very important. So quickly, let's run through osmosis and osmolarity. The solutions that are inside and outside the cells must remain in equilibrium. So the osmolarity of the ECF should equal the osmolarity of the ICF, right? Again, remember that we said the cell membrane is permeable to water but not permeable to solute. So whenever there is a balance, whenever there's an imbalance in osmolarity, water moves across the membrane. So this movement of water is called osmosis. So water always moves towards the area with higher osmolarity to restore equilibrium, and that is how cells maintain fluid balance. It's very important. Alright guys, so that's basically everything you need to know about body fluid compartment physiology. If you understand the 60-40-20 rule, if you remember ICF versus ECF, plasma versus interstitial fluid, sodium outside, potassium inside, the indicator dilution principle and osmosis, then you're already in a very good shape for your physiology exams and clinical understanding. Now that's how this concept should be understood, clear, precise, and exam ready. If this helped you, go ahead, like the video, drop a comment, and tell me what topic you want next. This is Dr. ABM, where you don't just study medicine, you master it. See you in the next video.